Hello everybody, welcome. I'm going to go ahead and set up a fog imaging setup. This would be an entire solution at a business. So in other words, I'm going to be using Pfsense and I'm going to use fog imaging, and I'm going to set it up in a way how you could set it up possibly in a business if you were using Pfsense as both your Dhcp route or server and also as your firewall, so that you can have it on the inside of the network and have everything work correctly like fog. But what we're going to do in this tutorial, just to make sure we know all the key points. Number one, set up Pfsense. Number two, set up fog imaging. Once fog imaging is set up, we're going to show you how to upload an image from a system and also deploy an image back to the network as well. So, thank you for joining us, and let's get started. All right, first off, I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to create another folder. So I'm going to call this one Pfsense. Right. Select Other, or I'm sorry, BSD, and this is going to be a 32-bit version of FreeBSD. My ISOs are basically what's on the server. If you don't have this one, you want to download this from the Pfsense website. Just look it up on Google, and you'll be able to find out where it is, and you want to download the ISO for it. Okay, so I'm going to click Next on this, and I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to about... You know what, actually I'm going to leave it at 128 megs of RAM because we don't want too much memory being in use on the computer while it's running. So I'm going to make it pretty small. So that's fine. I'm going to click Next on that and click Next again. And I'm going to leave it as default as VDI. Click Next again. Dynamically allocated, Next again. And I'm going to change this, instead of having just 2 gigabytes, let's go ahead and make it 4 gigabytes. And I'll click Next on that. Create and create. And so for this one, I'm going to add 2 network cards. So I'm going to go to Settings to do that. Go to Settings, go to the network card, and the first one I'm going to change it to a bridged adapter. And I'm going to go to the second network card, and I'm going to enable this one as a internal network card. This is how we're going to build all of our network, is going to be on this internal side. So for a lab that we're doing in the classroom or in a home environment or an experimental, this is why we have to have it internal, so it doesn't affect any of the other machines, especially for these projects. But really, this is going to work in the real world. The only thing is that you're going to have Pfsense with 2 network cards in it, one set for the WAN, one set for the LAN, and that's going to be your actual internal card, and that's going to have your network. And the LAN side on a Pfsense is what you're going to hook to a switch, so you can network all the computers at once. All right. So I just want to go through that little bit of an explanation. So adapter 1 is bridged, and adapter 2 is internal. I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that. And one more time, I'm going to go back to the settings on it, and I'm going to go to the storage, and I'm going to select the empty container, select the CD, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the Pfsense by choosing a virtual disk file. And then on my desktop, I have a folder called ISO here. Here it is, my ISOs, and I'm going to find Pfsense in here, which it's right here. Remember, this is the 32-bit version. Go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to go ahead and double-click on it and run it. I'll hit enter on to speed that up. Go can this as well. And it's going through and detecting the hardware we have. As you can see, this is going pretty quickly. There's no reason for me to pause the video. I'm going to go ahead and hit C on here, which continues through this live boot process. Notice we have 2 network cards in here, EM0 and EM1. So EM0 is our bridged adapter, and EM1 is our internal adapter inside of it. Do I want to set up VLANs? The answer is going to be no, and hit enter on it. And my first network card is the WAN, so I'm going to type in EM0. Remember, that's not an O, but it's the actual number 0. I'll hit enter on that one. Next one, I'm going to type in EM1, and then I'll hit enter on that as well, and then enter one last time to make the changes take effect. And the reason, and also you'll notice that if it's working correctly in the way you've set it up, you'll see both of these set up, EM0 and EM1. So they're one's LAN and one's WAN. So LAN down here for EM1, and then WAN for EM0. Go go ahead, yes, I want to proceed. Alright, you notice I have everything configured on here, and the only thing I haven't done is install it to the hard drive. Hard drive is the last remaining thing I need to do on this Pfsense, because if I don't, it's not going to store any of the settings, and I won't. Every time I reboot, it's going to lose all of my settings. But before I do that, notice up here my IP addresses are the same. That will not work. It does that would actually be a form of bridging, which I don't believe Pfsense will support it, but we could give it a try in a later lab. But we must change this IP address to something else. So I need to go right here where it says select IP or set interface IP address, which is option number 2. Hit enter on it, and I'm going to select 2 because it's the LAN that I want to change. And I'm going to type in what I want that IP address is 192.168. Let's make it 100.1. Okay. And the subnet mask for that's going to be 255.255.255.0. Oh, whoops. I started typing in the actual, it wants to know what it is, so it knows it by the 24. Sorry, it says it right here to the left. I typed it in manually, but it's right there. It's 24 that it wants to know. And it says, yes, I want to run Dhcp server on that side of it. And by answering yes, and my range, I want it to go for 192.168.100.1, 2. I need to go up 1 from what the network card is. So it was 1 was actually what my IP address is here. So I need to make the first starting one as 2. And then my ending IP address will be 192.168.100. Let's see, there's only 25 computers in the lab, so just if I was doing that, that's how I would set it up. Yes, I want to revert to the HTTP Web Configurator Protocol. Yes, I want that set up on there. And it's loading it right there, restarting it. Now it tells me once I have an operating system I can use, that right there is going to be the IP address for it. That's awesome. So good, we're doing good with that. I'm going to hit enter on it. And then lastly, what I need to do is install this to the hard drive. So I'm going to select 99, which is option right here, and let's install it to the hard drive. Okay, I don't need to change video by default. I'm going to go right down here where it says accept these changes, accept it, and I want to do a quick install and hit enter on that as well. And then okay, and I should bring up a menu here. It's going through and copying the information to the hard drive on the VirtualBox here. As you can see, this is pretty quick. Go through setting this up phenomenally fast. Alright, I'm going to leave it on symmetric multiprocessing kernel by hitting enter. And I'm going to go ahead and reboot. Only thing is when I reboot, I need to make sure I turn this CD-ROM off right here. So I'm going to turn it off. It's going to complain about forcing the dismount. Yes, I want to force the dismount because otherwise it's going to boot right back up to the live CD again, and then everything we did will not take an effect. You'll think something's wrong with it. So I want to stress to you, make sure you dismount the CD. Notice how it's grayed out? Because if you don't do that, you're going to have trouble with it. Hit F1. I'm going to start it up immediately. And there it goes. Notice that the timer's changed. Instead of 9 seconds here, it went to only had 3 seconds to go through it. And we can see that it's booting up okay. I don't see any problems with it. Yeah, it's booting up, no problem. Good, it's done. Notice that the option 99 is gone. That's one way to indicate whether or not you're running from the live CD or if you're running from the hard drive itself. So the option 99 is gone. So it's been installed on the drive. Notice what my IP address is. This is where my home network is, 192.168.1.51. And the other one is 192.168.100.1. Now that's the internal side of it. So now we have all of that working. I know my DHCP server set up on that so that I can do the install for running the Fog server. for right now, until I get Fog installed, I'm going to shut this down so I don't use so much memory of the computer. It's not such a big deal on mine, but for demonstration purposes on the dual cores that we have in the classroom, it may tax too much memory on the actual computer itself to it'll make it run even slower. So I'm going to shut this down as demonstrational. So I'm going to go ahead and power it down right now. And I still have it here, so I know I have this one set up. So I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to add Ubuntu now. So I'm going to click on Next again, type in Ubuntu. Alright, I also have the 32-bit version of Ubuntu, so I'm going to click Next on it as well. And I'll leave it as well as 512 megs of RAM is fine. Click Next on it. Click Next again. Next one more time. Dynamically allocated is fine. Next again. And I'm going to change this to 118 gigs. That way it gives me enough room to play around on it, and it will only use that much if it's needed. Otherwise, I won't need to even worry about it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click Next on this one too. And then create it. And then finally create it. Now I only need to use one network card in here, but if I leave it on and it logs onto the internet, what it's going to do is it's going to download all the patches. Well, we don't need to wait all that amount of time, and plus the network at the college is going to run too slow. If 24 people are hitting the same connection at one time, it's going to cause everyone never to finish the project. So I'm going to go to the settings of Ubuntu. Alright, and first off, I need to change the network card. Needs to be set to an internal network card. Remember, in Pfsense, one was bridged, one was internal. We're going to connect Ubuntu from inside of Pfsense to get on the internet, so it's going to be an internal network card. I need to click on the Advanced tab down here, and right off the bat, I need to uncheck where it says the cable is connected, so that way it doesn't get on the internet, and the install will take less than 5 minutes, 7 minutes at the most to set it up. Okay? Again, we've got all this set up in here, so let's go back to the system. And I don't need to boot up to the network card or anything, so I'm going to go to Storage, highlight the empty container, click on the CD-ROM icon to set up the CD-ROM drive. I'm going to choose a virtual disk. And in my case, all my ISOs are under ISOs on my desktop, and I just need to find the Ubuntu 11.10 is what we have in the classroom. 11.10 desktop, and it's 386 version of it. I'm going to go ahead and open that and click OK. I'm going to double click on it to start installing it. You know, as you guys can see, this is relatively quick. All of this setup of pretty much most of these items shouldn't take no more than an hour of the combination of everything. An hour is actually giving you more time than you really need. So waiting for this to come up. And it looks like our screen's a little bit bigger than my recording, but you guys will get the point of it anyways. I'll kind of center it here so you guys can see it. There it is. It's just about there. It's ready to go. Click on Install. And I'm going to go ahead and you notice it says the network cable is not connected. That's what we want, at least for the first part of this install, because we don't want it to start downloading all those third-party plugins and all the updates. Click Continue by leaving it to erase disk and install Ubuntu. Click Continue. Notice it's around 126 gigabytes. That's fine. Let's click Install now. As you guys can see, I'm going to select my region here. Click Continue on that as well. Click Continue as well on this one. And I'm going to put in CST user as my username. Okay. And my password is going to be CST. Alright, I'm going to click Continue on it. And you notice it's installing fairly quickly. Okay, it looks like it's just about done on that first segment. Go ahead and here. Looks like it's going to start coming up here. It looks like it takes a couple of seconds to get going with it. But this part, once it goes through, it goes fairly quickly. Almost done here. Almost done here. Looks like it's just finished up. There we go. Let's go ahead and restart. And waiting for it to come back up. Oh, sorry. Forgot to hit enter. Reason why it didn't go right away. And now what we're going to need to do, we're going to need to turn Pfsense back on, because that's going to give us our internet connection and plus do our Dhcp. Alright, let me go ahead and log in here so you guys can see that. Okay, just about here, logging in. And don't forget, I need to turn the network connection back on. So first what I'm going to do, you see there Ubuntu is installed. Went through pretty quickly as you guys can see. So I'm going to move this down here and I'm going to start Pfsense back on again. Again, remember, this is giving me my internet connection inside of here. And I need to check a couple of settings in here if I remember correctly. If I went down here to network and network adapters, and remember mine was internal, plus I'm going to go ahead and turn the cable back on here. Once Pfsense starts back up, go back to the settings here. It's just about up and running. Waiting for it to fire up. Alright, there it is. Remember, my IP address is probably going to be started off 192.168.2. So let's go back into Ubuntu. Okay, take a look at it. I'm going to turn my network card on down here. As you guys saw, I'll bring it up here so you can see it. Whoops, I want to do that so you can see it right there. And I'm going to right click on the network interface, go to settings, turn on the cable or check the cable. Notice that Ubuntu's configuring something here. Let's see. Notice it right here. I see how we have the little acoustic symbol. There we go. It says it's established. So I'm going to get on the internet or the network just to make sure. Sorry, internet just to make sure that it's working. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to download the fog imaging. Now, in the classroom, you guys don't want to do this. I have a really high-speed internet connection, so it's going to take far too long if you did this in the classroom. You're going to use the one that I copied on the server, okay? The one that's under 615 Friday's test, okay? And go to the project folder, go to download. And I'm going to go ahead and go to fog. And I'm going to go to the 3.20, which is the newest one. And I'm going to download the zip file right here. Takes a second as it's going through this little number here. Okay, I'm going to save it. Save as. And I'm going to go ahead and close out the web browser because I don't need it currently. Oh, it's not going to do that until it downloads it. Fine. Let's let it download here really quick. Now remember, my internet connection is coming from my Pfsense. It's internal. So what it is I'm isolating my entire fog server from the internet by putting it behind my Pfsense router. Now if I was doing this in a real business, the Pfsense router has two network cards in it. One's connected to the internet connection and one's connected to my internal network. And just so you guys can see that again, remember, Pfsense is running here in the background. This is my router, a BSD distro, and it's running as a routed service. So that's why my IP address came up as this too. And I'll show you what that IP address is here in just a second. Alright, looks like we're done. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. Close the website down. And I'm going to use a little bit of command line to do the editing on this. And just so you guys can see it, I'll pull it right here into view. And I'm going to go to the dashboard home. And I'm typing T, which is going to be my terminal server. I'm going to take this by left clicking and dragging this down to my taskbar down here so I can have a little shortcut of it so I don't have to go back into it again later on. And I'm going to go in and give this a dir, and I'm going to go to my downloads folder by typing in CD, and I'll put in, it's / yeah, whoops, hold on, I want to go to downloads, so it's down, there we go. And I'm going to go to, let's see, let me take a look here first and give it a dir, and you notice there it is. So I'm going to unzip the tarball, which is like this. I'm going to type in FO and then hit tab. There, I'll take off the GZ by doing that. It's a manual command. Give a dir, and you notice that it only has tar extension on it now, where it had GZ before. Now I'm going to type in tar-xf space fog tar. Hit enter on that. And I'm just manually uncompressing it just to speed up for the amount of time that it takes to do it. Notice I have a folder here now. I have my original tar, but I also have the uncompressed version of it. So now I want to go to CD fog /bin, hit enter on it, and then I'm going to type in sudo space / install. I'm going to go ahead and run it from right there. And what's my password? And I'll pop that in, which was CST. And I want to do Ubuntu, which is 2 by default. Yes, I would like to do the installation of the normal server. Yes. Would you like to use the IP address to be used in this fog server? What is, yes, 2 is fine. Remember I did tell you guys about that. Pfsense, which was back here. Remember that? The first IP address was 1, and now this one's number 2. So you know I'm getting on the internet through this connection. I'm going to hit enter on it. And I'm saying, would you like to set up a router address for the DHCP? Yes, I would. And my router IP address is 1, as you guys can see. Remember on the Pfsense back here? It is 1. Notice that? It is. So I'm going to say yes by just hitting enter. Would I like to set up a DNS? And my DNS also is 1. And let's make sure that it's doing that when I hit enter. I'm going to say yes to this one. And look at it right here. It is. So my DNS is the same. So I can just hit enter and accept that. And would I like to change the network card? I'm going to say no, which is the default setting, by hitting enter. Would I like to use the Fog DHCP server? No, because we're setting this up with Pfsense, and just like I showed you guys in the lab, I want you guys to learn how to do this on your own, so in case you set it up for a business, you can do it yourself. I'm going to say no, I do not want to run the Fog server as my DHCP, so I'm going to say hit next on it. And it's telling me briefly about why I have to do it, set it up on another location, and I'll show you guys how to do that in this tutorial. So I'm going to click next on it, say no, I don't want any language packs. Yes, everything looks correct. Look at my IP address. My IP address, the fog server, is 192.168.100.2. The DNS and the DHCP is all right here. So remember, this is on the server that I set up in Pfsense. So if you look back on Pfsense, see how I have first my IP address. This one doesn't mean anything because this is what I'm connected to on the WAN side on my router. But the internal side, you guys can see it right here. Okay? Just so you guys know. Hit answer yes to it. And here's the big clincher. It's going to load from the internet. It's going to set everything up here. And we'll let it get started. You need to watch this part because it's going to come up and ask you, do you want to finish a certain part about this? So we have to wait. Doesn't take too long though. It's confirming that it can contact where these packages are. Alright, they're downloading. And it is going to come up with a screen here. It's going to ask me to hit enter. So you have to pay attention to this, otherwise this could take way too long, because it'll sit there and do nothing until you answer that one question by hitting enter. Here it is, about right here. Okay, there it is. Hit enter on it, and it will start the install. You notice that it's still downloading from the internet, just like it would do if we weren't setting up a Pfsense router. But in the end, this is the way it would be set up in a business. At least a solution that I would provide, although you could set it up in any way that you like. This is just one way of doing it. I think this is a good way of doing it too. So this offers the customer a firewall plus their own DHCP. I'm going to hit enter on those. Make sure you leave this password blank around on this install, otherwise you have to change it at the end of the install. So I'm going to hit enter on that. Hit enter on this one as well. Hit enter again, because that's setting up the MySQL client and the server. For right now, if you set the IP address, it did tell you in the beginning you'd have to go back and set up the config file, but I'm just going to leave it blank since it's all internal. I'm not so worried about the security right at the moment, at least not for demonstrational purposes, especially if this server is inside of a network secured behind a firewall. It's going through the packages. This looks good. Setting up the last little parts here. You can send notifications if you want. I'm going to answer no. Right? Says my fog server started at this IP address right here. So let's give it a try by right clicking on this and saying open link. Looks like it's working, so I'm going to do the final little patch. Click install upgrade. Click here to log in. The username is fog, and the password is password, which is default. Let's click OK on it. Make sure we can log in. And that's wonderful. Now we got it running. So everything looks good. I can see everything coming up. Alright, so let's go ahead and set up now. Now we have all three of them running. So just so things will run faster, I'm going to go ahead and shut down Ubuntu, and I'm going to shut down the router at the same time so I can install Pfsense. I'm sorry, not Pfsense. So I can install Windows-xp machine so we can do a test upload. Alright, so let's go ahead and shut this down. Whoops, let's go inside of Ubuntu and shut it down. Which is on the far end down here so you guys can see this. It's this little icon right here. And then I'm going to shut down. And yes, I want to do that. It's going to ask me if I wanted to do some updates. Let's see if it does, because it looks like it was going to prompt me to do that just before it shut down. Here I am trying to be proper to the operating system, and it hangs because it wants to do it. There it goes. It shut down good. Alright, I'm going to shut down Pfsense as well. And I'm going to create a Windows XP machine. So I'm going to go to New. Next, I'm going to call this one Windows XP Test. Click Next on it. And I'll leave it also at 192 megs. It's fine. Click Next on it. Click Next again using the VirtualBox disk image dynamically allocated. I'm going to leave it at 10 gigs as well. And then I'm going to create again and create. And right click on it, go to settings. Need to change two things. So usually like going to the network first and change that from network to internal. And I want to come up here to system. And I'm going to come up to storage. Highlight the empty container, and remember all of the ISOs that we have are on the classroom server, which is on 4540. But in this case, I have mine copied to my desktop already. So I'm going to choose virtual disk drive, and I'm going to select the Windows ISO here. This is my ISO is WinXP Service Pack 2 US, which is fine. And I click OK on it. And I'm double click on it again. Make sure on your settings that your network card is set to internal. Okay, we only need one network card as well. So I'll click OK and let's fire it up. And you guys are pretty familiar with installing this. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, let it go through, and then we'll come back once it's booted up to the screen. This is just setting up normal Windows XP. Alright, as you can see, we have Windows XP loaded now. And let's go ahead and take a look at it here. Let's make sure that the network settings are correct. Let me move it into the window here real quick. And let's go down here and take a look at my network card, network adapters. This is in VirtualBox. As long as it's internal, great. And okay, so it looks like the Windows XP is up and running. Now we can take an image of it. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and shut it down. Let's log off the machine here. Okay. Let's bring it back up here again. Alright, let's start up our Pfsense. But first, inside my Windows that I just created, I want to get it ready to be able to accept an image. So what I want to do is I want to right click on it and I want to go to Settings. And I want to change the Network Boot option under System. And I want to make it Network Boot. So I'm going to check the Network Boot. All the way up to the top. That's going to have the ability now, so it'll boot up to the network card. So first things first. Before I do that, let's start up Pfsense. Hit F1 to speed this up. That's running through it. It's just about ready. It's just booting it up. Pretty quick here. It'll be up and running. Alright, that's all up and running. Let's minimize that. Let's start our Ubuntu server. Alright, that's just about up and running here. Moving in the display a little bit better here. Okay, let's go ahead and log in and put my password in. Alright, it's all loaded up. Let's go ahead and take a look at our Fog server, make sure it's up and running here. And our Fog server is going to be our IP address, which is one up of the router that was in Pfsense, so it's 192.168.2/fog. Hit enter. And our username is fog, and our password is password. Okay, let's log in. Everything loaded up just fine. We need to change one setting over here in our other information. That way we can make the menu so we can load our MAC address so that Fog server recognizes the image that we're going to take. So let's click on the other information over here window. And hopefully you guys can see that here. And over here on the left of the menu, I want to click on Fog Settings. And I want to scroll down the menu here, move this in so you guys can see it, and I want to drag it down to where it says, right here, where it says Quick Registration Auto Pop-Up. Let's turn that on. So 1, and that way it's going to pop a menu up in there that we can register the MAC address and everything in there. Now normally we can type in the name, but probably what I should do right now, since this is here, let's go ahead and change this to CST. Actually, let's make it capitals. CST, and then a dash in there. That way anything will name after that, the name all of the computers to set up on that. So that'll be good. Alright, let's go down here. Wait, actually you don't save it at the bottom, you save it, I believe this is the window here. It's one of these. Let's see if it's this one. I thought it was. It's one of these two buttons. Let's see how this works. One at the bottom. Also, it's this one right here. Let's make sure it saved it. Yep, and it put the auto pop-up menu right there. So good. Image ID, normally we type this in right here so it goes to it, but we'll just manually set it for this test anyways. Alright, so let's go back. Bring this into view so you guys can see this. Let's go back first. Let's go to looks okay. Alright. Looks like this is all okay. We wanna set up our host. We wanna do our first image. So what we want to do is let's go ahead and select it, but normally you can do it two ways. You can either put the information, the MAC address in their manual, or you can register like I was showing you. So, but first, before we do that, we need to talk to our Pfsense router, and that router is at 192.168.100.1. That's our Pfsense router. That Pfsense router is the username to get into it is admin, and it's the password is right here on the screen. It's just PFSENSE. So that's the password, Pfsense. And let me log into it. Good. And we have to enable a feature inside of the Pfsense to make it work. Now this is how it works in the lab, how we've set it up in the classroom. I just want to show you guys how to do it so you can make your own solutions out there. We need to find where the Dhcp server is, which is right here. So you click on the Dhcp server tab, and we want to drag that all the way down, making sure that you guys can see this. I'm just going to drag the bar down here down to the very bottom, and you'll see these options where it says Enable Network Booting Advanced. Let's go ahead and turn that on. Let's check that box. And what I'm going to boot to is my Ubuntu server. So that was 192.168.100.2. And then my PXE file. This is what file that it's using on the server to boot to the network. That's PXELINUX.0. That's the file that it needs to call out from the Ubuntu server that's running Fog. And that's pretty much all we need to do to be able to make this work to boot to the network. So I'm going to click Save on that. And I'm going to minimize the Ubuntu server, and then I'm going to bring up the Windows-xp and boot to the network from inside of that. So when I double click on it, I'm going to wait for it to boot up. It's bringing up the PXE server now, and it booted to it. Now, if you notice, it's only going to give you a few seconds. You see this little tab here? I can use my arrow keys. Come down to where it says Quick Host Registration and Inventory. You want to do that immediately, okay? Then what you do is you click Enter on it, and what it's going to do is it's going to load the information, the MAC address, into our server so that it can put the host information. It does this all kind of automatic. So we'll go through it, let it go and do its thing. It's registering with our server. And let it run through it. It'll be done here pretty quick. No point in letting it boot up to XP after this because we're going to take an image of this one. I'll just wait until it's done there. Looks like it's almost done. There it is. I'm gonna kill it so that because otherwise it's going to boot back up to Windows XP. I'm going to go back to our Ubuntu server. And I can go ahead and close out of this page, log out of it. So I probably shouldn't have just closed it like that. Go back to Firefox, and I'll show you the host that it registered under. So let's go back to our Ubuntu server, which was 192.168.100.2/fog. Enter on it, and let's put in our username, and the password is password. Alright, good. Let's go over here where it says image. Actually, let's do host management first so we can see that it's in there. Host management, list all hosts. And we have one. This is the one that logged on, put our MAC address in there. Everything was set up, which is really good. So I believe, I think we can edit it and select an image for it. Okay, we could do this. So this is fine. I'm selecting an image, what it's going to be, but I need to update on it. So what I'm going to do is let's update that part of it, and let's go back into where it says image management, and let's list all the images. There is none. We have to create a new one here since that host name was already done. I'm going to call this one, actually I'm clicking on new image. Let's call it WinXP test. Select storage group is default, which is fine. And image type is going to be, it says single partition, NTFS only resizable. Yes, I'm going to do that. Let's click add on it. And let's list all the images here. And I believe this is all looking good. Okay. Let's go back to our hosts management. List all hosts. Here it is here. Let's edit it. And let's make sure we select the host image here, which is going to be WinXP test. There we go. So now we have our MAC address that we loaded with that previous screen. Everything's set up in here. It says it won't resolve it. That's okay. But we're going to update this. So as you guys can see here, I went back to host to bring that to it. And now I have the image that I started up under image management. Let me update this before I click out of it. Go back to image management. You'll see it here by listing all images. You see it here. Okay. And that's how I set it up. So this is what my image is going to be called. This is all set up. So this is the way that you load your image so that I can deploy these images. So let's go back to it. Now that we got everything set up under host management, list all hosts, you can see it right here. Good. So what we're going to do is we're going to load an image to that. Let's go to what's called task management. And let's go ahead and click on list all hosts under task management. And you notice how we have one that says deploy, one that says upload. We also have some advanced tools which we'll get into later. But right now I want to do the upload version of it. So let's click OK on click on the upload. And let's go ahead and start the task by default. Look, it says this is what I'm going to save the image as to this MAC address. Very important that the MAC address is entered correctly from that previous screen that I showed you. So let's click upload image. Now it's started. Let's list active tasks. Means that it's waiting for an image. So now we can minimize the Ubuntu. And let's fire back up our Windows-xp, which we're going to take the image from, and make sure that it boots to the network. It's going to recognize the MAC address right off the bat, which it just did, and it's going to take that image. It's going to make an image of it now, and we'll wait as it's coming up. Awesome. It's taking the image now. This is all good, as you guys can see. Yep, everything looks like it's working. There it goes. It's pulling it through. It's loading the OS. Let's see what it says at the top. It says saving partition to image file, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to pause it here until it finishes. I'll be right back. Just finished. So I didn't quite catch the screen. It went by pretty quick. As you guys will see that it does run quite quickly. And once it's done here, I won't let it restart because it's going to load my image back up again. Alright, so let's go back to our Ubuntu server. And notice that my active tasks is done here. Give it a second to adjust because it's loading that image and configuring it. Let's take a look back here at image management here. Let's take a look really quick. List all images. Let's edit our WinXP test. I see that it's up. That's loaded in there, which is good. Okay. All right. Now let's deploy an image. So let's go back here really quick, and I'm going to create another task here. So I'm going to add another Windows XP window without anything in it. Let's click next again, and I'm going to call this WinXP 2. Okay. Let's click next on it, and I'm going to accept all the defaults in here. Don't need to change anything other than the network card settings, really. Okay. Right click on it, go to settings, and since I'm running this as my internal network, I have to select internal network, and I need to set up the network card as the first boot option. Okay. Click OK on it. And remember, since I already turned on the automatic pop-up to register the machine, it's already there. So I need to double click on this, let it boot up to the server. Okay, and then I want to be ready to move the arrow key down, and I want it to automatically register. It's going to give me an option on there. See it right there, quick host registration and inventory. Click on it. We're adding it into our Ubuntu server right now so that we have a host for it, so it adds the MAC address automatically. That way we don't have to do it ourselves, which makes it a lot quicker in some cases by doing it this way. Yeah, it looks like it's done. since there is no image for it set up yet. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just kill it. It's going to fail anyway, so I'm going to close it. And let's go back to our Ubuntu server. And I want to go back in here. I want to go under, let's see, under host management, and I want to list all the hosts. And you notice that it added it, because remember, I set it back on that other menu. This is the first one that we had. What I want to do is I want to edit this one, and I want to add the image. You'll notice that the image is not in this one. So let's go back and list all hosts. And here's the first one that I added. And look, you notice it has the image already for it. See how this one says when I registered it as well? So let's go back. List all hosts. Let's go back to the CST2 one. Notice it doesn't have an image selected for it. I want this image. And I want to run this operating system, which is Windows XP. So now I have them set up, and let's go ahead and update it. It looks like it's done. Let's go back to task. And no active tasks, as you can see. So I'm going to go list all hosts. And here's our host 2. And I'm going to say I want to deploy this one to this computer. Now notice it has the new MAC address in it. So normally what you do in the business is you would add all these machines in there so you can continuously re-image them, whatever you need to do with these, and you have it set up. And there's also some more features where you can add software to it. A bunch of unique little things. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this one right here as well. So I'll click on deploy, and then I'll image all computers, and I'm going to go back to the secondary, the one, this is my Windows XP that has no bootable options on it. So as soon as I double click on it, it's going to send the image. It's going to recognize the MAC address, and then that's why it sends images out. You notice it's going through it, just pulled that MAC address right out of it. It knew that's the image it needs to install. Yeah, Fog is a unique server. It knows which is the MAC address. It does everything by MAC address. So right now, I'm loading that complete operating system into another virtual box. Give it a moment. It says it's waiting for the disk to settle. Awesome. Now notice before when I said when it was actually saving right here at the top where it says restore partition from image file. Before it said saving to image file. Now it's actually sending that image over the network to connect, which is an awesome tool. This is completely awesome for IT help and engineering like myself. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I'm going to wait till it finishes here and pause for just a second. And it's almost done. I wanted to get this captured for you so you guys can see it. Finish up. And there it goes. It's finished. It's loading. Let's watch it go through and boot up to Windows XP now. Remember, this is Windows XP 2. This is the secondary one. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter to boot from hard disk, which is what we want to do. And as you can see, it looks like it's loading just fine with a saved image from inside of Fog server. Awesome. Alright, thank you for joining us for that tutorial. Hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have, and I'll be looking forward to seeing all of the results and how you guys like setting up the actual image server. So thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.